So unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably seen this video by Corridor Crew. I wanted to find out how hard it actually is to make some of these shots, and I don't have nearly the experience or the technology that the Corridor guys do, so let's just say this was an interesting process. Let's get into it. So the shot I decided to create was this one, where Spider-Man jumps over the helicopter, falls through and gets all chopped up. The first thing we had to do was track in a clean plate, and this is basically just built up of tiny little parts of the footage where Spider-Man isn't showing. So you can see here, as I turn on these nodes, more and more of the clean plate is being built. Then I just manually track that plate on top of the footage, so when Spider-Man dives through the rotors, he disappears. The next thing I had to do was figure out how to get Spider-Man to get all chopped up, and I tried doing this in Resolve, but I just couldn't figure anything out. But luckily, Blender has the perfect tool for this job. If we come into Blender, and we just come up to our Object tab, Quick Effects, and Quick Explode. And you can see this works perfectly. Just chops up Spider-Man into all those little pieces. And I just got this Spider-Man model for free from Sketchfab. Then I took that model, put it into Mixer mode to automatically rig the character so we can put him in the right pose. Because we can't just have Spider-Man diving through in a T-pose. That just wouldn't look good. So you can see here, I was able to put Spider-Man into a very similar pose to what he was in the original shot. And I just tried to line up the camera angles as good as possible. So now you can see here, Spider-Man's in that pose and it just explodes into all those little pieces, which is perfect for what we need. So as you can see, we got our pose pretty good. It's pretty close to what the original is. But if we just laid this over the top and let it play, it wouldn't look very good. So we had got to do a bit of editing magic. First, I brought the animation back to start on frame 6. So as soon as he hits the blades, then Spider-Man explodes. But he doesn't really explode in the right way because he's going through the blades. He wouldn't all explode at once. So then I brought in a rectangle node. So you can see this rectangle node just masks out where we don't want Spider-Man showing. As the animation happens, it looks like he's getting chopped up through the blades. Which, I mean, that's not super polished, right? But because it's such a quick scene, you barely even notice it. And now if Spider-Man's getting chopped up, there's going to be a bunch of blood and guts and stuff. So we track in some blood elements. The first one's like this big blood splurt that gets all stuck to the helicopter. And again, like, it's not perfect, but it does the job. Then we put in some dust elements that we tint red to get all that like misty blood, but it's still not quite right. We need some more of that like thicker, meaty stuff. So then I tracked in some like really thick, disgusting looking blood. And that's our shot looking pretty good so far. Next, I just added an extra layer on top of Spider-Man getting all chopped up, just so like those chopped up pieces come through a little bit more. So now you can see the blood and guts and stuff look really good, but they don't quite match the scene. They're way too bright and they're way too clear. So it's time for some magic on the color page. So on the first node, I just brought the saturation and the color boost down a little bit. On the second node, I just added some directional blur. On the third node, I was just playing around with some of the color wheels, mainly the lift and the gamma, just to try and match the coloring a bit more. And then in this node, we also added some motion blur. And on the final node was just a little bit of adjustments in the gain and the offset in the color wheels. So you can see without this color grading, everything's really bright and stands out, which is cool and all, but it doesn't match the scene. And with all that grading stuff on, everything looks a bit flatter, but it matches the scene a lot more. And then finally, to tie everything else together, because the shot was so quick, I felt like it was missing a little bit. So I got this next shot. In the original, Spider-Man grabs onto the helicopter with his web and swings under it, but we all know that didn't happen in this version. So what I did was took a still frame where Spider-Man wasn't in the shot, then took all of my blood and guts and added them in. Then I just masked out those bars with a polygon. So now that this part of the helicopter is in the front, it looks like all these bloods and guts have fallen through the rotor. So now our shot's looking pretty good, but it's missing that extra sauce. It's missing that sound design to really tie everything together. So we layer in a bunch of like blood splat sounds and fluid sounds and a little bit of a scream and a helicopter for the background, and we get this. Nice and disgusting and suits the scene perfectly.
I'm gonna die.